If you're hearing this in the days right after losing someone, I'm so sorry. Take your time with it, or set it aside and come back. It will keep. I'm telling you this because there is a particular kind of person in this world who reads the obituaries, not to mourn, to hunt. They wait for a death, they find the family, and they call while the grief is still fresh, because they know a grieving person will pay almost anything to make one more painful thing go away. I want to make sure that when they call you, you already know exactly who they are, because forewarned, this scam has almost no power. And there's one fact, one simple legal fact, that takes the fear out of it completely. Let's start there. In almost every case, you are not responsible for a dead loved one's debts, not their credit cards, not their loans, not their bills. Hold on to that like a life raft, because it's the opposite of what the scammer will tell you, and it's what the law actually says. When someone dies, their debts don't transfer to their spouse or their children. Those debts belong to the person's estate, the money and property they left behind, and they get paid out of that if there's anything to pay them with. If the estate can't cover them, they usually just go unpaid. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is explicit. Surviving spouses, children, and siblings are not responsible for a relative's debts unless they personally co-sign for them. So when a voice on the phone says, "Your late husband owed this and now you have to pay," that voice is either mistaken or lying. And either way, the answer is the same. Not without proof in writing verified, and usually not at all. Now they come in two flavors. You should know both. The first is the phantom debt collector. A caller says they're collecting a debt your late spouse owed. They're sympathetic at first, then firm, then frightening. They talk about lawsuits, wage garnishment, damage to your credit. Some of them even threaten arrest. None of it is real. The FTC recently shut down an entire operation running under names like Blackstone Legal Group that took millions of dollars from people by collecting on debts that never existed, using exactly these threats. And here's how they found their victims: obituaries. They read the death notices, note the surviving family, and call. The specificity feels like proof. He knew my husband's name, he knew he'd passed. But all of that came from the same obituary you or your family placed. It's public. Knowing it proves nothing. The second scam is the fake funeral home. And this one, to my mind, is the cruelest in this entire book. Someone calls in the middle of your funeral arrangements, claims to be from the funeral home, says there's been a problem with the payment, and that unless you pay more right now, the funeral will be canceled. The FTC, which does not usually deal in adjectives, called this one despicable, and said it belongs in a scammer's hall of shame. They target the few days when you are least able to think, and most desperate for nothing else to go wrong. And the defense is the same as it is everywhere in this book. Hang up and call the funeral home back on the number you already have from the paperwork they gave you, not the number that just called. The real funeral home will not hold your loved one's service hostage over a phone call. Now let me tell you why this works, because it isn't a weakness in you. Grief does something specific. It exhausts the exact part of you that would normally push back. When you're bereaved, you're rushed, you're overwhelmed, and every instinct says, make the problem stop. I can't take one more. Scammers know this precisely. They aren't exploiting a weakness. They're exploiting a wound on purpose, on the worst days of your life. And there's a trap laid inside the grief. If a fake debt is small, a couple $100, the temptation is to just pay it, to make the calls stop. Please don't. And here's the reason, and it's important. Making even a small, voluntary payment on a debt you don't owe can be treated as you accepting responsibility for it. A token payment to end the harassment can legally create a debt that never existed before. The one thing that feels like relief is the one thing that can hook you. So here's what to do. Don't pay anything. Don't confirm anything. Not the debt, not your date of birth, not your late spouse's social security number. Nothing. I'm not discussing this over the phone is a complete and correct answer. Then demand it in writing. Real debt collectors are required by law to send a written validation notice, what's owed to whom, and your right to dispute it within 5 days. So say, send me everything in writing. I won't discuss it by phone. A scammer usually vanishes right there. A real collector complies. And loop in one other person, the executor, an adult child, a probate attorney if there is one. You should not be fielding these calls alone in the first place. This is exactly what family is for. Here's what I'd do. I'd say one sentence and hang up. Anything you have to say, you can put in writing and send to the estate's representative. And then I'd stop talking. Because here's what I understand about myself in grief. I would want to resolve it. I'd want to be a good spouse, a responsible person, to handle my late partner's affairs properly and not leave loose ends. The scammer is counting on exactly that decency. They've dressed a robbery up as a chore a grieving person feels obligated to complete. So I'd remind myself, handling their affairs properly means paying verified debts from the estate through the proper process, not handing my credit card to a stranger on the phone because he made me feel like a bad widow for hesitating. Real obligations survive a written request and a few days' delay. Only scams can't. And if you've just lost someone, please lean on your family more than you think you should. The single best protection against every scam in this chapter is simply not being alone with the phone. Ask an adult child or a trusted friend to help field calls for a while. Let them be the one who says, put it in writing. It is not a burden to them. I promise you, they would be honored to stand between you and these people. It's one of the few concrete, useful things a grieving family can do for each other. And if it's already happened, if you paid something you didn't owe in the fog of those first terrible days, you are not a fool. You were grieving, and someone built a business out of ambushing people in exactly that moment. That is one of the lowest things a person can do, and the shame belongs entirely to them. Call your bank about the payment, report the caller, and tell your family, then let them take the phone for a while. You have enough to carry right now. This part you can hand to someone who loves you.